getting real at 49ers training camp. The pads are coming on Monday. We might have the debut of rookie first rounder Ricky Pearsall, some other rookies making waves at camp as well, and Purdy's market set. All that and more coming up on today's Locked On 49ers.
You are Locked On 49ers, your daily San Francisco 49ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On 49ers. Brian Peacock and Eric Crocker at BD Peacock at Crocky209. Thanks, everybody, for making us your first listen on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We appreciate and love our everydayers, and we love it even more when you hit that subscribe button on YouTube or wherever you are listening to this podcast, which is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. As playoffs wind down, sports stop sporting like we want them to. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with boosts and bonuses daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. All you got to do is visit FanDuel.com to get started. All right, Croc, the pads come on. A little thump about to happen. Might get a little scrap or two, maybe a fight. I think most of the fights these days happen at those joint practices, and that's really not too far off now once you start getting into the second week of camp, start getting into August. We're going to start talking about preseason games here pretty soon. It happens fast. And one thing you don't like to happen at camp is injuries. And there has been some injuries in the offensive line, which has opened the door for rookie Dominick Puni. But before we get into those things and talk about the rookie Pearsall potentially making his debut in the second block of practices here that get going Monday with pads, Tua Tagovailoa, $53 million per year, 4 years, $212 million. Jordan Love, they basically signed at the same moment. They got the same agency. Jordan Love, 4 years, $220 million, $55 million per year. So 53 and 55, Croc. What do you think about those contracts for those young quarterbacks? And what do you think it means for young Brock Purdy?
First, let's start with like their contracts and really just the way contracts are kind of structured in the NFL. You know, if you're a quarterback and you're a starting NFL quarterback, like you make an astronomical amount of money, which might not even truly be justified. Like Tua, he's a solid quarterback. Like he's not like terrible, but is he a guy that can like take this team and that offense to the next level? And I would say he's kind of show he isn't capable of quite doing that, right? Then once the weather gets a little bad, his play dips as well. And you can, if you watch the game, you can kind of see he's kind of carried a lot by Tyreek Hill. Right, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle. That's why those guys are making the big bucks as well. But I have a proposal. How about the NFL do something like the NBA has done? The NBA, they have these max contracts. But if you make an all-NBA team, you're eligible to make more money. If you don't make that all-NBA team, you are not eligible to make that extra lump sum. And I think the NFL should adopt something like that with the quarterback position, because right now you look at the highest paid quarterbacks in the league. It's not Patrick Mahomes. Like it's not, Josh Allen. Like it's not even the guys that you would assume it would be. It's Tua. It's Jordan Love, and nothing against those guys. They're terrific. But is there in any universe should they be getting paid more than the guys that are actually the guys that are being, first team all pro, second team all pro, or at least have those accolades behind them? I think they have to do something about that, because it just seems a little, I don't know, unrealistic to pay him that much. And then with money comes expectations that this guy will never live up to.
Yeah. And I've heard some proposals of maybe having a separate quarterback cap, a separate positional salary cap for just quarterbacks. And even I've heard even other ideas to help running backs out, to do it with running backs and maybe potentially all positions, and positionally their salary caps. And, it would probably get pretty convoluted, and it's already hard to follow and figure out exactly what the rules are and how teams are utilizing the salary cap in a lot of ways. But it is artificially pushing some things up. I think players need a bigger chunk of it, but what's happening, Croc, to me is I think it does hurt the middle class of player is what it hurts, because the top guys still get paid. And then after a couple of years, if they're bad, they can get cut anyway, depending on how much guarantees they have and how deep those guarantees go into their contracts. And then all it does is make teams want to get cheaper elsewhere. So it makes it harder to pay the middle class of player in the NFL if 20% of your cap is taken up by one player. And then if you have, a star receiver and a star, say, defensive end, well, there's most of your cap gone in 3 guys. So, if they're all hitting at the same time, and, teams can do things with the way they structure, and, a lot of back ending of contracts. And there's a million things that teams do. And, I'm not even the greatest to talk about that, because you almost it has to be like your thing to be a cap guy to really talk that deeply about it. Cause that's how crazy it is a lot of times. I love players getting paid. And it's just one of the things I see is what's happening right now with Trent Williams too, is so now Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes are going to go, well, I'm not the best quarterback in the league. I'm not paid the most anymore. So now I got to redo my deal. And so that's when they're going to start getting $60 million. And then Brock Purdy's going to come next after all that happens next offseason. And then Purdy's going to be like, Purdy's going to be like, oh, well, now I get 61. Because that's what happens. Every guy's up just gets the most. And it's automatic, which is really weird. And I guess it's kind of easier to be maybe an agent and a GM these days, because you don't haggle. They don't haggle anymore, right? It's just like, I'm up next, I get the most. And then the next guy that's up next gets the most. And that's just the way it's going to go in perpetuity now, it feels like.
You started off this question asking me about Brock Purdy and, what do those contracts mean for him? And I think, like a lot of other people, it just means this guy's going to get paid. And if they're getting paid $55 million a year right now, $53 million a year right now, I think we can expect Brock Purdy's floor to probably be close to $60 million per year. I know the guaranteed money is usually more important when it comes to contracts, but when it comes to the quarterback position, I don't think so. Like a lot of these guys play out their contracts. We see Dak Prescott right now. I think this year, maybe they purposely did it. Hey, let's backload his contract so, it doesn't hurt us as much early on. Well, he's finishing out his contract, so he's making $60 million this year. Right. So, I think with Brock Purdy, whatever he gets, that $60 million a year, it will be $60 million a year. I'd assume he'll get all of that money unless something drastic happens, which I don't foresee happening right now. I think he's a guy that even more so than Tua and even Jordan Love at this point. Jordan Love, he's really played really high level football for half a season. I think we've seen much more of that for Brock Purdy and a deeper run into the postseason. This is a guy that's going to get paid a lot of money, and it will change certain things, right? Maybe you'll lose maybe a star player or a player here and there. Maybe the defense can possibly take a hit. But one thing I've noticed with the San Francisco 49ers, led by John Lynch, Kyle Shanahan, really constructing this roster, they do a terrific job of this kind of next man up thing. They'll lose a guy, then next thing you know, it's like, man, it didn't really impact the team to the extent that you think it would. When in 2020, when DeForest Buckner was traded, if you would have told me that, hey, you'll take a hit this year because of COVID and 49ers have all these injuries, but the next year you're going to conference championship, Super Bowl, I'd say, oh, I'll take it. But I would have thought you were lying because of how important DeForest Buckner was to the team. He was a cap hit or cap casualty ultimately in the grand scheme of things, and it wasn't something that truly bit them. So I think you'll have those type of decisions that the 49ers will have to make with Brock Purdy, but nonetheless, they've done a terrific job of really building and constructing a roster that can compete year in and year out.
It's funny because you mentioned Tyreek Hill and, how the offense might help some quarterbacks. And a lot of people say a lot of the similar things about Brock Purdy as they do Tua. And it's the scheme, it's the players around him that are really elevating the quarterback more than the quarterback elevating the team and the system and everyone around them. But it's interesting that Patrick Mahomes lost Tyreek Hill, and they still went back-to-back and won Super Bowls, and Tyreek Hill's the one that's supposed to be helping out the other quarterback in the other place, but it didn't hurt that much to lose Tyreek Hill in the place he was before either. So how much does that even matter?
And
does it only matter if you don't have Mahomes?
Well, that's the part, and I think if you look at Super Bowl winners year in and year out, like I don't think you have to have a Tyreek Hill. But it's clear when you watch the Miami Dolphins how much they put on Tyreek Hill's plate to really help them, right? Now, with Mahomes, all we've known, or at least, until Tyreek Hill left, was Mahomes, Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, like all these guys. And He came in, he dominated through 50 touchdowns his first year as a starter, league MVP, and he's been on a tear ever since. And then now you get to see a chance to see him without him, and it's like, wow, I think this was probably the worst offense that we've seen from Kansas City. So I do think that there was an impact, and they were kind of scrambling to figure out who is going to be that next guy up. But they have good coaching. The defense stepped up, and then the offense and Patrick Mahomes were special in the moments that they need to be special in. When you look at the Miami Dolphins, we saw Tua before Tyreek Hill showed up. What did that look like? I mean, there were people that are trying to run him out of Miami. He's trash. He's never going to be good. Tyreek Hill shows up, and all of a sudden, he's one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the league. So, I think with Mahomes, he's proven that even regardless, he can figure it out, even if his numbers aren't as great as they would be with Tyreek Hill. With Andy Reid, I can figure out still how to win. Tua Tagovailoa, still, I think he's kind of struggling with that aspect of it. Really needs Tyreek Hill. So I think a lot of that just kind of depends on the quarterback. And I think for Brock Purdy, there is a lot of conversations surrounding how important his players are for him. All we know right now is what he has, the coach that he has, and he's executed at the highest level that he can in his situation. So maybe one day we'll find out. But for right now, it looks like as long as Brandon Ayuk signs, 49ers won't have to worry about that, at least this year.
Man, and teams just aren't willing to let their quarterbacks go. So it's just they're going to keep getting paid. Even Daniel Jones, when I was like, probably move on from that one. It's like, no, we're going to pay him too, $40 million a year, whatever it is, So whatever you want to say about Tua, whatever you want to say about Jordan Love and the lack of track record, and what you want to say about Brock Purdy, this guy's going to get paid, man. And Brock Purdy's up next. And actually, he might not even be up next. There might be a couple more in between. So that those numbers were at 55, might go up even higher than that. So we'll check back in the offseason with Brock Purdy and that, because he's not even eligible to get that extension until after this season. All right. I want to talk Dominick Puni, Ricky Pearsall, 49ers rookies. The pads coming on at 49ers camp Monday. We'll get into all of that next. Today's episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by FanDuel, America's number one sportsbook. It's Olympics time, and man, you can bet on everything Olympics related. It is so much fun at FanDuel, and of course, Major League Baseball all summer long. And of course, you can bet on NFL football futures, props, and there's a ton of good ones for your San Francisco 49ers, by the way. And this summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone every day, all summer long. So all you got to do is head over to FanDuel.com and start making the most out of your summer. Maybe the over I'm feeling on Deebo Samuel, 775.5. I'm liking the Deebo vibes at camp right now. No Ayuk, no Pearsall. Deebo's there, and Deebo's in shape. That might be the over you want to hit at FanDuel. FanDuel.com. FanDuel, official sports betting partner of Major League Baseball.
Hey, Peacock, you just brought up the Olympics, and I've been watching some Olympics, watched some USA basketball earlier today, watched them dominate Joker's team. I also had it on the TV, watching some swimming. And one of the coolest things about the Olympic is when they medal, and a bunch of USA athletes were medaling, when they play the anthem, the United States anthem. I think that's so cool. So if y'all haven't checked out the Olympics, make sure you guys, just tune in. If not for anything, just to watch them play the United States national anthem. It's such a cool thing. And you see it means so much to the athletes to represent their country and really have a nation be proud of them.
And you have that moment, especially in the sports, because you and I are so into team sports, those sports where it's just you. You're standing there by yourself. And there's a flag and the anthem's playing, and it really for any country. And it's kind of cool actually to see some of the other countries and hear some of the other anthems, and and when it means so much, and to see someone proud and their country is just watching them, and they're standing up there on top of that number one by themselves. It's pretty amazing. So yeah, the Olympics are really cool. And it's fun to watch some of these sports once every 4 years. I'm definitely not going to put any time in otherwise, but it's really cool to see. I'm telling my son, it's like, look, this is a different stroke. This was the backstroke. Next, they're going breaststroke, and then it's going to be the freestyle where they go even faster in the water. And just trying to, I'm just watching with him, and he's like getting pretty patriotic about it, and he's like, yeah, I'm rooting for the USA. Let's go USA.
That's what's up. Probably won't be watching any badminton, after this. Olympic stint, right?
Right. Yeah. I don't hit the local badminton scene very hard. But it's really cool to see all these athletes and the greatest in the world doing whatever it is they do in their sport once every 4 years.
Yeah.
Dominick Puni getting a shot. I've been talking all along about, man, Puni might not be in the plans much for this year. And I've talked about Ricky Pearsall and Jacob Cowing and Renardo Green and Malik Mustafa. Is like, this is a really big draft, I think, for 2025 when you start looking ahead at some of the free agents the 49ers have. But first week of camp, it happens every year. A couple guys go down. Spencer Burford has an injury. Looks like he'll miss about 3 weeks with a broken hand now. And then the veteran who's bounced around between guard and center, and John Feliciano, banged up as well. So what do you know? Rookie Dominick Puni over at right guard, working with the first team in practice to end the week last week, and now get a day off on Sunday and then come back Monday with the pads on, where the offensive line should get their revenge a little bit on the defensive line because it's so hard. And clearly, based on reports, Croc, you and I have not been there yet. We will be there Tuesday at camp. Come say hi if you see us at camp this Tuesday. It's more fun to watch camp with pads on. You get a better idea of what's going on, especially with the big guys up front, and the offensive line have an opportunity to strike back on the defensive line. And, without Trent Williams, it sounds like, they've been handled pretty well, and not a lot of running room for Christian McCaffrey. And they've been getting after Brock Purdy pretty well, especially on that left side with Jalen Moore in for Trent Williams. But I'm interested to watch Dominick Puni, see if he looks like a guy who might be able to get in there and start, because all you need is an opportunity. And if you look good, well, guess what? You don't give that job back, right? Like, be so good that they don't want to give the job back to anybody else. Get your best 5 offensive linemen in there. Dominick Puni, wearing number 77, the rookie out of Kansas, has that opportunity now with some veterans out for a couple of weeks to prove he's ready to start as a rookie. And then Ricky Pearsall due back, Croc.
Listen, here's the thing for Dominick Puni. The 49ers, the fan base, the front office, they are looking to upgrade the offensive line. If they don't have to, then okay, we'll rock with what we have. But Puni definitely has an opportunity here to say, well, you guys are looking for someone to replace these right guards. You guys want somebody to step up. Why not me? And hopefully he gets a grasp of the offense. You got to take advantage of all of these reps that you're going to get. There's a chance, with Puni, don't get much reps, right? Like, your second string, there's a lot of attention put on the first string offensive line, offensive team in general. But now these guys are out. They're hurt. They can't do anything. What are you going to do in this moment? And I'm telling you what happens. They have a couple good reps. They start looking around, have a few more good reps. The veterans start talking. Once the veteran Trent Williams and those guys start talking, goodbye, Spencer Burford. It was fun while it lasted with you even having an opportunity to start. And it happens really quick, especially for a guy that they just utilize a 3rd round pick for. Like, they want Dominick Puni to be good. They hope he is. They didn't have to put any pressure on him to be good right away. But now, hey, man, take advantage of this opportunity. So I think the fan base should be excited about, like, what does it look like? And I think come Tuesday when Peacock and I are out there at training camp, I know that's the main thing I'll be watching.
I saw here, where is it? From Bay Gibson, he said, Demo gone next year and Huff and Banks. And I think that was kind of the plan. And you look at the free agents to be, it's going to be hard for the 49ers to bring back both Diamador Lenore and Charvarius Ward, but they're going to bring back one of those guys. Probably the homegrown guy, if I had to guess. But we'll see. Charvarius Ward is right now a better player. And do you want the more shutdown guys? The money's not going to be that different between the two. And Hufanga, Malik Mustafa has had a great start to his rookie camp. Is he the replacement there? Aaron Banks, can the 49ers afford to pay a guard if they're paying these guys? And so Dominick Puni has a huge opportunity to, even if he doesn't win a job this year and they don't want to go with a rookie early on in the season, if there are more injuries later in the year, he's got to show that he's prepared to jump in, whether it's right guard, left guard, who knows, maybe even tackle, and be ready to take over one of those starting jobs and be the guy that they expect to be penciled in to start the offseason as a starter at either left or right guard. And so that's the, whether it's Renardo Green or Ricky Pearsall or Dominick Puni, Malik Mustafa, all those guys have that opportunity to be the guy who the team says, okay, I liked what I saw as a rookie. They don't like throwing rookies out there if they don't have to. but prove that you're ready and make them put you in the game because you're one of the best 11 on offense or defense. And at least, the very least, make them understand that, yeah, we don't need to go get somebody over the top of you next year. You are the guy we plan to have starting in 2025 at that position.
Yeah, shout out to Bay Gibson in the chat, and he says, Demo gone next year, Huff and Banks. There's absolutely no way that they lose all three of those guys.
They could lose 3 if they sign Ward. They could lose all 3 of those. I wouldn't be shocked at all if Huff and Banks are gone next year, but they're going to sign one of the corners. They're not going to let Ward and Demo go.
Right. That's just not something I see happening, especially
30 mil a year for Ayuk. Okay, $60 million a year for Brock Purdy. You can't pay guards, man.
You will start losing guys. Yeah. You will start losing guys. I'll give you this, and I like to do the whole percentage thing, right? This percentage, is likely to happen. If you had to put a percentage or at least put a higher percentage on these guys, like which guy would be gone, right? Would you put a higher percentage on Demo being gone, Huff being gone, or Banks being gone? It sounds like you're leaning towards Banks. Like out of these guys, if you have to choose one, you would go Banks because you think the guard position, they're getting paid a lot, but it might be one of the easier ones to just replace.
Yes. And, hearing Firster talk about it, hearing Shanahan talk about the offensive line, it's probably easier to sign a safety than a guard at this point too, because safeties are making less than guards. So I feel like Banks is the least likely to be signed of those guys. And I would say right now there's probably, I would say there's like, it's a near certainty that they sign one of Ward or Demo and let one go. Like that almost has to be the plan for the 49ers next year.
And the only way that is Demo is just likely they get priced out and they end up choosing the cheaper option, which is Ward in that scenario, right?
Or what if Demo kind of settles into a nickel role and then ends up not making as much in the free agent market potentially,
right?
Maybe that's a way that he ends up sticking around and they sign both at the same time. But they got to draft and develop. I mean, the roster is getting old and expensive. And so even besides not paying guys potentially, they need to replace guys who are going to age out pretty soon, whether it's Williams, whether it's, we know how running backs, how the tread can come off those tires pretty quick, and you need to have guys ready to go.
You trying to get rid of Christian McCaffrey?
No, I just know how the position goes. It's the whole thing about running backs. It's not that I don't think they're talented. I don't enjoy watching them play. But attrition is real at that position, and it happens faster than other positions, especially when you have the number of touches and carries that Christian McCaffrey's had in his career. Somebody else mentioned, it might have been Bay Gibson as well, mentioned that Puni could be playing some right tackle when the pads come on. I don't know about that. I would have no problem with it. He just played left tackle in college. Let the guys compete, he was a better prospect coming out than Jalen Moore was. So yeah, let him compete. Let him prove that he could play some tackle, right? I think they want him to be a starter at guard rather than a backup at tackle, though. So I think that's why they probably want to start him inside, leave him inside, because that's where they view him as a long-term starter. But the other rookie, Kingston, he was getting some reps at right tackle in practice, apparently. And that would surprise me a little bit because I think his physical profile isn't even quite as good at tackle as Puni's is, but they were giving him an opportunity to look at a lot of different positions, which is good for him. That means they're looking to find a way to allow him to stick on the roster. Because if you can back up 5 positions on a roster, or if you can play guard and tackle, I mean, that's huge. If you're going to have a uniform on Sundays, you have to back up multiple positions in the NFL.
Yeah, definitely. And for these guys, they understand, what the versatility does for them. Just make yourself more valuable to the team any way possible. And for a defensive back, it might be DB, but then be terrific on special teams, running down on gunner, being a guy that can play some nickel or maybe, a little bit of safety as well. For an offensive lineman, it just, can you be the swing tackle, play guard? And we've seen some of the guys that hang around the 49ers, it really helped. Daniel Brunskill, I mean, I think he lasted several years past what people probably expected when he signed with the 49ers because he was able to play multiple positions.
Next, let's talk Ricky Pearsall. As the pads come on, the 49ers are expected to have their first-round wide receiver back at practice. Could they get even more reinforcements at practice Monday? Next. This episode of Locked On 49ers is brought to you by Gametime. Gametime is an authorized ticket marketplace of Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. In fact, prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. Killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee. Gametime takes all the guesswork out of buying Major League Baseball tickets or NFL tickets, college football tickets. Maybe you want to go see a concert, comedy show, theater event near you. Yep, you can find them all at Gametime. Save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets, by the way, as well for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. And I love that the all-in pricing, you toggle it on. There's no surprise fees at checkout, which is the worst thing about buying tickets in this day and age, is those surprise fees. You're not getting that with Gametime. So take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Pads coming on Monday. We're going to hear the cracking of those pads. And one of those guys that might be cracking pads, according to Kyle Shanahan at the beginning of camp, unless there's any change in those plans, it's Ricky Pearsall. The second block of practices after the day off Sunday, Ricky Pearsall is expected to be on the field with the San Francisco 49ers. It looks like he had been close the first week of camp. They're being smart with his hamstring. He's been running around, and I'm excited to see what that looks like. And who knows? Tua's contract's done. The Jordan Love contract is done. If you can get a $220 million contract done, you should be able to get a 60% of that contract done like Brandon Ayuk. So who knows? Maybe Ayuk joins the 49ers. Maybe Trent Williams joins the 49ers very soon at practice. I, for one, hope that is the case and can't wait to see if that does happen. By the way, Croc stepping away for a moment here. With Ricky Pearsall too, when he gets on the field, and obviously I mentioned it earlier with the offensive line being able to utilize the thing they have, the advantage they have over the defensive linemen, even if they don't have a talent advantage over the 49ers, very talented defensive front. They have size, they have weight. You can lean on the opposing guy now if you are the 49ers offensive line. So hopefully that opens up some running lanes. Hopefully the 49ers offense is able to move the ball a little bit more, and Brock Purdy has time to find those receivers, especially Ricky Pearsall. I'm excited to see Ricky Pearsall practice. You're always excited to see the newest first round pick. Want to see him in uniform, see him running around, see him making catches, see how quick he looks. And if he's not there Monday, he better be on the field Tuesday when Croc and I and Wink and my son are all at practice. It's going to be a whole lot of fun Tuesday at 49ers training camp. I can't wait. And the guy I'm going to be looking for most now, just the way the training camp has started, is Ricky Pearsall, because we haven't gotten a lot. We haven't gotten to see him a lot. And I wonder if Monday maybe is a ramp up day and he really does a lot more on Tuesday. So I'm hoping that's the case and he is full go 100% by the time we're at camp on Tuesday to check him out. And who knows, maybe Brandon Ayuk joins him at practice there. By the way, Brandon Ayuk, this is the softest hold in I've ever seen. Like I've never seen a guy who's negotiating a contract and like trying to win leverage by not showing up to practice, but still showing up at practice and watching practice with the GM of the football team. This weekend, he's standing next to John Lynch behind the defense and watching the team practice. If that doesn't tell you they're going to get a deal done and a deal is imminent, I don't know what does, because they've got to be close. If Brandon Ayuk's there holding in and watching practice with the GM, what could they be talking about other than ball too? Like, is he talking about how, man, I would have made that catch if I was out here. Oh man, you need me on this field because these wide receivers aren't getting it done. Like, I would love to have the mic'd up of that conversation with Brandon Ayuk and John Lynch at 49ers training camp practice. It's unbelievable stuff. And I said here on this very show, when Brandon Ayuk asked for a trade right before the start of camp, to me, that was Ayuk and his agent kind of blinking, because that was a desperation move, a Hail Mary right before camp, right before fines would start, right before he has to report to try to get a little bit of leverage back, to get him back to the table, to get an offer up a little bit more, to try to get that deal done. And seeing how things have gone, seeing that Brandon Ayuk, rather than holding out, is holding in at practice. He's on the sideline, walking around. He's hanging out, watching practice with John Lynch. The fact that he's just there at all, it seems like it's a lot more likely that a deal is going to get done than it did, 2 weeks before training camp started. Croc, did you see Brandon Ayuk standing next to John Lynch watching practice? And what was your takeaway there? Because it's the softest hold in I've ever heard of in my life. I've never seen the guy who's negotiating a contract, trying to play hardball, trying to win leverage back, watching practice with the GM. I've never seen that.
I think part of this just might be, again, something that he's being told to do by his agent. And maybe his agent is also telling him, the guy who also shares the same agent as him, right? Like John Lynch, Ayuk, same agent. Hey, man, like, just go talk to John Lynch. Be cool with John Lynch, throughout this process. He's actually not the enemy. It's Parag Marate. Like, he's the enemy right now. He's the guy crunching the numbers. He's deciding what they should pay and not pay. So, go ahead. You don't have to be there every second. But if you have a chance to kind of, just chat with John Lynch, some of the things you're seeing during training camp, feel free to do so.
Man, Croc, I love this. This from Dan in the chat. Says, I used your Gametime code to get my tickets to the Patriots game, my first home game after 30 plus years of fandom from the East Coast. So East Coast 49ers fan gets to watch his team, the 49ers, when they go to face the New England Patriots in week 4, right? Was it week 4? And getting a deal on tickets using our Gametime code too as well. So shout out to all our sponsors, especially Gametime. Locked On NFL, by the way, for $20 off your first ticket purchase is the code on Gametime. Get yourself some tickets to a 49ers game or whatever event you want to go see. Shout out to Dan. Appreciate you letting us know that. And I love that too, because we're not, the 49ers are global. We got fans on the East Coast. We got fans in the Midwest. We got fans in Brazil, in Australia, in New Zealand. We got fans in the UK. We got fans in everywhere in the world. We got fans. And it's phenomenal when I hear from those fans, and it gets me pumped up. And just talking about seeing these guys on the field, man, I'm pumped for Tuesday too, Croc. We get to actually sit there and evaluate ourselves and get our eyes on this version of the San Francisco 49ers, potentially with a first rounder in the mix on Tuesday.
We talked about watching Dominick Puni. Is Ricky Pearsall the other guy that you're like going to have your eyes on? I think the tough thing for us is the roster is kind of what it is, right? It's one that we've seen. There's a lot of returners, a lot of starters. So I guess is the biggest storyline. I know some people, the thing I see most people try to make a storyline out of Brock Purdy playing well. All he's done is play well with the 49ers. So, like, I'm not even worried about Brock. I don't even think I'll be paying attention to Brock Purdy. Like, all he's done is play well. It's some of the other guys, like the rookies, Dominick Puni. What does it look like? You have an opportunity. Ricky Pearsall, you're coming off an injury. What do your reps look like? Who is filling in for Brandon Ayuk in his absence? What does Cowing look like? Like, I feel like those should be the storylines. But I do continue to see people talk about Brock Purdy. What are you doing? Don't waste your time with that. We know he's going to do his thing. He's going to look like Brock Purdy during training camp. We saw him last year look like Brock Purdy in training camp, and he was coming off of a surgery and just showed up. So
and he's not the type of guy with, like, he's not big, super fast. He's not going to rip off a crazy 70-yard throw. You're like, wow, that throw from Brock Purdy. I don't know if he's the type of guy you really appreciate in camp enough, the way he plays, because just being on time isn't really the thing in training camp unless you get to those move the sticks drills where he's actually moving his team down the field and getting first downs, and then you might notice some darts a little bit more. But he's not like a big wow you type of guy. Or like, is it a disaster without Trent Williams at left tackle? Like, that would be more of a story than the actual quarterback play. And it's hard for me to get really excited about the QB2 battle too. So but I will have my eyes on the quarterbacks, obviously, and we're going to be watching a lot of that. But yeah, Ricky Pearsall, does he just immediately go in with the ones and in Ayuk's spot and start getting reps with the ones, or is he working behind Jennings and working behind like Conley and working behind some of the veterans on the roster? That'll be, and which spot is he working in? That'll be something I'm watching for sure, as much as how good he looks. You
just talked about, Pearsall, and like, when does he, really kind of step in? And again, I've talked a little bit about my experience in the NFL, but I remember being with the Jets, and we had a guy by the name of D. Milliner. He was drafted number 9 overall. He had he showed up with some kind of shoulder injury. So he was out during OTAs. He didn't do any of that, didn't do minicamp. And then once it came time for training camp, he was cleared, but he was holding out, waiting for his contract to be fully guaranteed, which it eventually was. And from the moment he signed that contract, he ran on the field and he was a starting cornerback opposite Antonio Cromartie. I don't foresee that being the case with Ricky Pearsall. I feel like Kyle Shanahan's a guy who is going to 100% make Pearsall really learn the offense. He's not going to put any extra added pressure on him. And they have veterans that have been there, done that, understand the offense. Guys like Conley, right? Like Conley, at the very least, he knows the offense. He can work with the ones, and Pearsall can eventually work his way in. That's what I expect to see out of that situation.
Hey, who knows? He might not even get immediate reps over year 3. Danny Gray, who's shown up quite a bit in the first week of camp as well. Vieta in the chat says, hoping all the NorCal folks staying safe with the fires. More fires. Hate seeing it happening, especially some of my folks I'm close to up in the Chico area getting hit again with some fires up there. So hopefully, our thoughts with them. Hopefully that stuff gets handled and gets contained up there. We're out of time here, Croc. More notes from tomorrow's practice as camp gets going, gets cooking with pads. And of course, Croc and I will have tons of reports from being at camp this week. And we will talk to you then right here, Locked On 49ers.
Subscribe to this video.